I'm Adam from the Digital Soup Podcast, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out all the other podcasts at gonnageek.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
Talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. The Intellectual Podcast starts now.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Intellectual Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Dawson.
And I'm Whitney Wegman.
It has been a while since we've been together.
It has been.
We did get together a little bit back, but we had some technical difficulties with the recording.
Yes, we did.
It's not usable.
So, we have seen each other, just you guys didn't know that.
So, how you doing, Whit?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. I don't even know where to begin. I think the last podcast that actually went out was pre-Oscars.
Yeah.
So it's been several months since we've had a show. Lots and lots of stuff has happened.
It really has. So this was, if the last show is pre-Oscars, then that was before Film Awards, right? Or
yeah.
So before Film Awards, before the last Avengers movie, before things that you've been doing in your life, things that I've been doing in my life.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
We have a lot to cover, I think.
Why don't we just start with the kind of first big thing that we did discuss when we got together a month or two ago.
But you guys didn't get to hear it because technical difficulties.
Congratulations on winning Best Actress at the San Diego Film Awards.
Thank you so much. I was really surprised and very honored. I was up there with some amazing ladies. Those who were in my category, I'm just honored to be up there with them. They're all very talented. And so yeah, it was a huge surprise. That night, I was running around performing as Marty. I got to play a female Marty McFly for some of our skits. And I had changed into this lovely dress that had been made for me by Adela Garcia for the awards. But at the end, I had to come back out as Marty. So I was all prepped and ready. Okay, as soon as they say the awards, whoever goes up there, I'll jet backstage and change and then be ready to go for the end. And
because you didn't actually think you were going to win.
No, I didn't. That's
not just the humble thing that you said. I know you didn't think you were going to win that.
No, I was ready to move on to my next thing. I was okay, it was an honor to be up there. And, just like I said, I was up there with some really caliber talented actresses. And yeah, so they called my name and I was just kind of very flustered. I hadn't planned any sort of speech. So whatever came out is whatever came out. And I don't really know exactly what I said.
I've gone back and watched it because you can actually watch the Film Awards at kpbs.org and on the KPBS app on Apple TV and whatnot. And yeah, you weren't prepared. You could tell you weren't prepared. I was watching you when the announcement was made, just in case you won, because you were just off to my right. You and John were standing off to the right. And when your name got called, the look of just kind of total shock on your face was priceless. And then to watch you go up and kind of stumble your way through the acceptance speech. But it was so genuine and so loving, not just to the filmmakers that helped you make the film that got you the award, but all the girls who were nominated with you, and then you spread that love to the whole community. It was quite lovely to watch.
Aww,
and
Jody
Silly had mentioned that your speech was her favorite of the night.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Yeah. So quite a night for you with all the parody videos that came in starring you, a couple of bits of stage bits with you on stage, and then winning that. It was Whitney's night.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah. Thank you so much. I just got my coffee, folks. I mean, if you've listened to this before, I live and breathe coffee, so you know that I'm happy now, right? So yeah, it was, man, it was quite an adrenaline rush. Like that was a big, like, obviously I've been on stage before, but that was a lot of people. And I think even though obviously it didn't go out live that night, just the awareness that there are cameras and that there are people who will be able to see this in perpetuity for, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah, for however many forevers.
Just talking about it is getting you a little flustered.
A little. It was big. That was a big thing. But it was awesome. A bit of an adrenaline rush.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the same for me when I won Best Director a couple of years ago. Like just that moment of like, what? Did I actually hear my name? Was that me? You know, and then you go up and it's just a blur.
Yeah.
Like the whole moment you're on stage is just a blur. I've watched it, so I know what I said, but like my mental actual recollection of that moment is
of
like
what you said, yeah.
A vague memory of like thanking my mom for being there and my aunts, you know, who were in from the Philippines and Dubai. I thanked those three women. And then I'm pretty sure I thanked Teresa and Brian and my sister Laura. And then I don't remember anything else.
I remember seeing your mom that night. She was just beaming.
Yeah, she was really happy. And,
yeah.
As it turned out, that was just like a month and a half before she passed away. So it was lovely to have that night with her.
Yeah.
Because that's the first ever like directing award I ever won.
Really?
So she actually got to be there for that, which was really nice.
That's great.
Yeah. What else happened since then?
Well,
Avengers Infinity War came out.
Infinity Wars came out, yeah.
Which just passed the $2 billion mark.
Not surprised. It was
worldwide.
really good.
Yeah, amazing movie. Poor little Shawnee here. Just burst into tears at the end for like 45 minutes to an hour. Because his favorite Avenger bit the dust is a good way to put it.
Yeah, literally. I feel like we can talk about spoilers.
Again, please.
I feel like we can talk about spoilers at this point because, you know, if you're gonna see it, you've hopefully seen it by now.
Yeah, well, with $2 billion at the box office, I'm just going to assume everybody has seen it.
Everybody's seen it, yeah. Yeah, man, it was. I mean, of course it was Marvel, so we all like expected a lot from it, but the depth that they were able to take comic book characters to, it was pretty impressive. Like that, specifically that moment with Spider-Man and Tony, like,
yeah,
painful, like the whole fatherly connection that they have and just utterly failing the kid, which of course was the one thing that he said in Homecoming, like, yeah. If you die, that's on me.
What if somebody died? That's on you. If you died, that's on me.
Yeah.
I don't think I can live with that, you know? Like, yeah, all that came rushing to me when that scene happened. Mm-hmm. I loved it. I loved the whole movie. Very, very curious to see how they resolve everything. Very curious to see how stick to their guns Marvel will be about who doesn't actually come back. Mm-hmm. That's the big thing I'm curious about.
I really think Robert Downey Jr.'s out. Like, obviously he'll be in the fourth movie, but I think that's going to be, we're going to see the arc of his character and like the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, well, him and Captain America both, because Chris Evans' contract is up. Downey Jr.'s contract is up.
I mean, they've been doing this for over a decade at this point.
Yeah, so, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that it was pretty much the original Avengers that survived Infinity War. Because I think of all the characters who potentially could die and then not come back, they're the ones that are the most legitimate to write off at this point.
Yeah.
You know, like Iron Man hasn't even had another film since Phase 2. Mm-hmm. Right? Because Iron Man 3 was like the beginning of Phase 2. And they haven't had any Iron Man movies since.
Well, but he's been a cameo in every single, you know.
So, but, you know, I think that as much as anything is just to keep the character going.
Relevant, yeah.
To get to this point, right? So,
there was a leak of a poster for a supposed leak putting quotations around that.
I looked at that poster. It doesn't look legit to me.
Really?
Like the artwork just looks off. Especially if you compare it to the artwork that came out for Infinity War. Like it thematically just doesn't
fit.
It doesn't fit the feel of what the Russo brothers and Marvel have been doing for their marketing. So I don't know. I could be wrong. It could be something. It could be like, an early test piece.
Maybe. Maybe. But if so, Hawkeye and Ant-Man were both back, which was a question in my mind, like, where the heck are they for all this? And, like in the movie, they sort of excuse it. Oh, they took a plea deal and, for their families, da-da-da-da-da. It's like, okay.
I think some of that, too, is just like balancing how many characters you have on screen, right?
Well, and balancing people's shooting schedules, to be totally honest, because, they have other films that they're in. Well,
like Ant-Man and the Wasp is coming out in a month.
Mm-hmm. Oh, in a month. Wow. Okay, right? Yeah, soon.
So it's July 6th.
Awesome.
Less than a month.
Can't wait.
Right? So obviously they were making that movie right around the same time that Infinity War was being made. So, I think some of that, like you're saying, is definitely, it was like balancing the various people involved. I wonder a little bit whether or not Clint might show up in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, I could see that.
Yeah, especially because like in the comics, like Hawkeye and Ant-Man,
buddies.
They're buddies and they operate together. They did a little bit of it in Civil War, when Hawkeye shot the arrow with Ant-Man on the tip, just straight out of the comic books.
Well, I mean, so that would also make sense, especially if if chronologically Ant-Man is happening like during the same time as Infinity War, and at the end there's some sort of catalyst for bringing him and Clint into the fourth film.
Yeah.
So
Ant-Man and the Wasp, from everything I understand about it, takes place shortly after Civil War.
Okay.
But that's not to say that like the end credits sequence isn't some piece that leads you into the next Avengers film.
Well, and do we know how much time it's 2 years, right? No. It was 2 years since Age of Ultron, because that's how long Banner has been off in space. So really, I mean, like, even if it happened, there's maybe like a year span between the end of Civil War and the beginning of Infinity Wars?
Yeah.
So, in other news, jumping, have you seen the new Deadpool movie?
Yes.
What'd you think of it?
I loved it.
You loved it?
Yeah.
I think I liked the first one better. I enjoyed it, but I think I liked the first one better.
It's funny because I've heard both ways with people. And I didn't say I liked one better than the other, but I've heard both. I've heard people like Deadpool 2 better. I've heard people say they like Deadpool 1 better. And I think in most conversations I've had with people, the defining thing about whether or not they like this second one better than the first is whether they're okay with the fridging or not of Vanessa. So, spoilers. Personally, I don't care one way or the other about fridging. But you're shaking your head like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, explain fridging as a term.
Kind of goes hand in hand a little bit with the Bechdel test. How female characters are treated in a film. The idea of fridging is like killing off a female character or turning her into an ice cold whatever to provide the motivation for the male character.
Got it.
So, I get the arguments and the complaints about that, but it's kind of also part of what drives human drama. So,
well, and it's not that different from how she was characterized in the first film. I mean, yeah, she wasn't dead, but she was still like a lot of his drive and reason.
Yeah. She's always his motivation.
Yeah.
So, And I thought it was really artfully done how they handled it all.
That was very pretty. Like their shots of the other world.
I loved the cinematography of this whole sequel. Like I thought it was brilliantly shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really enjoyable. I guess my hesitation, I mean, I did enjoy it, but I thought what challenged me was when they sort of got Cable in on the tongue-in-cheek breaking the fourth, like, I don't know, it just seemed out of character from like the Cable I think of from the comic books.
When did Cable break the fourth wall?
Sorry, he didn't break the fourth wall, but he had, some of his banter was a little more like Deadpool-esque than I think Cable would do. Because he's just sort of a stoic badass.
I thought he was pretty stoic for the most part. Yeah, that's fine. She can say what she wants. My nephew is sitting with us while we podcast. He called Whitney out on badass. Yeah, I didn't have any problems with the portrayal of Cable. But I'm also not I wasn't a prior huge fan of the Cable character either, and most of Deadpool, like, I'm really aware of Deadpool, but I wasn't a huge, like, follower of Deadpool, I've become more of a fan of Deadpool because of the movies.
Yeah.
And I think because I appreciate that breaking the fourth wall stuff better on film than I did in the comic books. Because there's just something damn funny about listening to Ryan Reynolds riff on Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy and like all those actors outside of their characters within the confines of the film. And even the ending, the whole ending in this one.
He like makes fun of himself all the time.
Yeah, and that kind of like totally self-aware nature of Deadpool, I think just works beautifully on film.
I would agree with that. That's the thing. I don't have any qualms about that character. It was just the characters that they've chosen to pull into this one. So part of it's probably because, like, Hope Summers is one of my favorite X-Men, so I have lots and lots of opinions on that. And I'm just wondering if they're going to carry that into the next stage of that character, because they sort of briefly mentioned her. She was Cable's daughter in the film, which, I mean, they didn't really go a whole in-depth to that. Guys, if you haven't read the comic book, she's not really his daughter. He did raise her, but that's his sister. But he raised her in the future. And so he's older than her, and they have a father-daughter dynamic, but they're siblings. It's complicated. Time travel is really complicated. Anyway, so...
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Yes, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Anyway, I've always wanted to play Hope Summers. Like, that's my, if there was a goal, like more so than winning an Oscar, playing, and it doesn't have to be Hope. I really like her. She's my favorite X-Men. But if I could be just a superhero, that would be really awesome. So that's a life goal. Putting it out there to the universe. You guys all heard. I would like to be a superhero. And if I could choose any superhero, it would be Hope Summers. So that's why I had a lot of opinions going into seeing Deadpool. And I just question, like, those comics get super intense and serious. And it's like the decimation of the Earth. Hope is the first mutant born in 50-something years. And it's... I don't know if it plays well with the playful nature of Deadpool. But again, they didn't really go that far into it, so I guess it works for now. I wonder if they're taking it any further, and that might become a challenge.
Well, the X-Force movie is supposed to be coming. So I can only assume that Cable's story will continue in the X-Force film.
Yeah.
Which will not be a Deadpool movie.
It's true.
Right, so
it might change the tone.
Yeah. I thought his tone... And maybe it's just a reflection of being in the Deadpool movie. The Cable's tone was very different from Deadpool's, but he's interacting with a character like Deadpool. I think it draws out a certain type of response to things. that can be read as really dry or read as being kind of participatory.
So you think the quips are more just, okay, I'm going to talk to you like the idiot you are.
Yeah. This is the only way I can get through to you, knucklehead.
Okay, I would buy that.
But boy, what a month for Josh Brolin, right?
I loved how much the Thanos quips all the time throughout that entire film. It was great.
Yeah, and I like boy, that's really dark. You sure you're not from the DC universe? Did you see the tweet from DC and Warner Brothers to Ryan Reynolds?
I did not.
After the movie came out, they're like, "Hey, we want our Green Lantern ring back." They're like, "Enough's enough. We want the ring back."
Gosh.
It's hilarious.
What did he actually have the ring in the film? I didn't even.
He kept his prop ring from the movie.
Yeah.
Right. So, all these quips for 2 movies now, just ripping apart being part of Green Lantern. They're just kind of like, "Hey, we want the ring back."
I mean,
I think that's hilarious.
He's making fun of himself more than anything. They need to get over it.
No, I thought it was good PR on their part.
Yeah.
Oh. Just like, if he's going to be acting like that, let's play into it too and be like, "Hey, give us the ring back." If you're really that unhappy.
I don't know what I loved about that movie. So, John does not like Ryan Reynolds. Not that he does not like him as an actor. He does not like him because, well, I really like him.
Gotcha.
So we went and saw this movie.
So Ryan Reynolds like at the top of your little list?
Yes.
Okay.
But he's married and has children, and I would never do that. Anyway.
Fantasy role-playing over. Okay, now back to the podcast.
That's the podcast. Yeah. So we went and saw this movie, and that ending bit where he's made fun of himself throughout the entire film, but that ending bit, and if you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it, but I turned to John, and I'm like, how can you not like this guy? Anybody who can have that type of sense of humor and dog on themselves seems like a pretty decent person. John's like, yeah. And I'm like, plus he's Canadian. He's like the nicest person ever. Canadians are really nice. Everyone that I've ever met.
Yeah, I've never really met. Well, isn't William Shatner a Canadian?
Oh, I don't know.
He's kind of a douche.
I hope William Shatner doesn't watch our show. Listen to our show.
You need to go online and look up, there's some videos and stuff I watched very recently of the first time that Will Wheaton met Bill Shatner. And it's fucking priceless, man. It is so funny. Like, make sure you go check that out. Like, look it up. Will Wheaton meets Bill Shatner for the first time. Like,
all right. I will do that.
It tells you everything you need to know about William Shatner.
I will do that. So yeah, there was that. What other things have gone on since the last time we've chatted? What have you been up to?
Oh, well, I've spent most of this year working on a documentary. Do you guys need anything? No, we're good, thank you. We're sitting at Old Town, San Diego, by the way, in a courtyard by a bar, so we'll occasionally get interfered.
We are at the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Old Town,
yes,
which is a historic hotel. I don't believe it's still used as a hotel.
Isn't it? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think it's just a restaurant and bar at this point.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's really cool.
Yeah.
And supposedly haunted, which Sean was super interested in, the haunted history tours of Old Town.
Yeah. So anyway, what I was doing, I spent most of this year working on a 7-part docuseries about medicinal cannabis, which had me traveling to, I think, 11 states across the country, including almost all of California, like
That's
San
crazy.
Francisco, all the way down to San Diego. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen a whole lot of you. That's, not a whole lot of podcasts.
Since January, I've been home, I think, a total of like 31 days. So 6 months, I've spent a month at home. The rest of the time I've been on the road. It's been crazy. And I just got back 2 days ago from Florida, And I drove all the gear that I drove out to Florida in January. I drove all that gear back, right? So I did a 4-day drive home. I leave again here in a day and a half for Denver. I'm going to drive stuff up to Denver, and then I'm going to hop on a plane, fly to Seattle, work a show in Seattle for a week, and then Mike Peterson and Teresa and Brian and I are going to be driving gear back from Seattle to San Diego. We're going to take our time, visit a few places on the way back, but like it's just nuts, you know.
Sounds crazy.
Thankfully, July, I don't have anything lined up out of town, really. And I think there's maybe 2 shows, but I think they're both Southern California shows lined up for August.
Yeah.
There's a distinct possibility that I'll be sitting on a panel with Neil Halford at Comic-Con.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
Talk about podcasting.
That'll be fun. I will be there.
I've got to confirm that with Neil. But shout out to Neil Halford for, you know, calling us up and asking if we'd be interested. It's the only way I'll go to Comic-Con this year. What else is going on? I'm going to, kind of part-time live in Mexico this summer after I get back at the end of this month.
What prompted that?
Juddy Silly got a vacation rental down in Playas, 4 or 5 blocks from the beach.
Nice.
For the summer. Asked me if I wanted to rent one of the rooms. I've been contemplating moving to Mexico.
Well, that would be a good way to check it out.
So, yeah.
I have not been to Mexico since I moved to California.
Really?
Yeah, I have my passport. I'm just not.
Well, when I get back, when I get back from Seattle and I go to head down there, you should come down.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, because the only parts.
It's the house is open for everybody to come and hang out.
That's awesome. Yeah, the only parts of Mexico I've ever seen are parts that you get to on a cruise ship. You know, like Cozumel, those things. Yeah. And that's like a day trip.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll come down and hang out.
Okay. Yeah.
We should totally do it. I love going down to Ensenada. We can drive down there and go see the blowhole and stuff.
I just want to go and get a giant thing of the really good vanilla for baking.
There you go.
That's one of the best things. I don't know if you guys, if you don't bake, you don't know this, but real vanilla is kind of stupid expensive, but you can go down to Mexico and get a jug of it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Anyway, I am not going a whole lot of places this summer. John and I discussed it. We're like, where should we go on vacation this year? And I'm like, why would we go on vacation anywhere? We live in San Diego. This is where people come to vacation. Yeah. So we're staying. We are going to try our hand at learning how to surf, which should be interesting. When I was younger, 13, 14, on vacations, I'd go and, I've tried to surf and I did pretty well. But that was a long time ago, actually. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, other than that, I'm in a couple of shows, theater shows this summer. I'm doing Fringe Festival. I'm in The Quote, which is a play written by Michael Shantz about the Gary Hart.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. The Gary Hart scandal back in the, early 90s, mid 90s?
Yeah, early 90s. So I wanted to say it was late 80s, but yeah, I think it was early 90s.
And then I'm also in a play over at Lamplighters called Lovesick. That's being directed by Kristen Fogel. And then outside of that, what have I been doing? So I worked on a horror film with Jeff, and you were there as well. So I think we'll still be doing some work on that.
Yeah, we've got another night of shooting in July.
Yep. And
which I'm taking over the directing duties on. So.
All right. So yeah, we'll be more blood and guts and gore. And then I did some pickups on a film that I shot up in LA. So recently we did some pickups on that, which was it was a great day. It was this beautiful garden over in, starts with a P. Help me out here. Pasadena. We were over in Pasadena. P word. And we were shooting in this really beautiful garden, and it was just mostly me walking around, kind of being a clown version of myself, because I was supposed to have never seen plants or flowers or anything like this before. And I had a really fun time because that's clown version of me is just like, oh, that's exciting, and that's also exciting, and so is that. And I got really close to a bee, like, because I was exploring this bee and looking at it super close, and the director, like, oh, she's like, I really wanted to call, a quit on it because I thought you were gonna get stung by that bee, but clearly you knew, like, because I was like, maybe, and not even an inch, like a knuckles length from this bee. And she's like, I really wanted to call cut. I thought you were going to get stung. But it worked really well. It was fun. Exploring things like a child.
Well, we're going to have a guest on here in a minute. Who's a friend of yours. You want to kind of tee it up a little bit?
Oh, yeah, sure. So Lauren Schell is going to be coming onto the podcast here in just a bit. She's actually a fabricator for various films. She did some of the models for Interstellar, so some of the spaceships and things. She also did, there was this film with Justin Long, and it's Right Before Aaron, or I might be messing up that title. It was kind of not low budget, but not well known, because I think Justin Long produced most of it. But there were a lot of props pieces in that, like this giant, and I mean giant, like taller than a person wedding cake that she had to build. And I got to hear the trials and tribulations of that wedding cake, because it was quite an undertaking. And then she's been doing a bit of puppetry building, like tiny model building for a television show where they reenact stories of woe from different actors, like just weird things that have happened in an actor's life and things like that. And they do it with puppets, tiny, tiny puppets.
Oh, cool.
So she'll be here to talk about all of that and tell those stories better than I can, obviously.
Well, so we'll get to the interview with Lauren here in a second. I want to take a moment to remind everybody to visit our website, theintellectual.com or ixe.us. Our whole back catalog is available there, and you can listen to episodes with folks like Jim Cummings, who's the voice of Winnie the Pooh, on our 1-year anniversary podcast. I bring him up because the Christopher Robin movie will be coming out here pretty soon, starring Ewan McGregor and Jim Cummings doing the voice of Winnie the Pooh.
Oh,
still,
that's so great.
Which is fantastic. And we've got a number of short films that we produced in the last 6 to 8 months, which have been doing the festival circuit. And I want to give a shout out to the teams of both Forever My Love and Tossed Aside for starting to get some legs in the festival circuits. Tossed Aside won Best Dark Comedy at the Oneros Film Awards in April. And Forever My Love is currently up for Best Actor and Best Cinematography at the Oneros Film Awards for May.
Oh, nice.
So just, very cool that both of those films are getting some recognition. Oneros is an Italian film festival. So we're kind of excited about that. We're hoping we get pulled into their annual screening part of the festival in August. We should know that in the next month or two. And and if you haven't checked out the Gonna Geek Network, we are a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, which you can find at gonnageek.com. And there's a whole bunch of shows there that you can check out that will fulfill your geek needs. And so in between new episodes of the show, which have been sporadic and hopefully will be less so over the next couple of months, make sure you're checking out our back catalog and checking out other shows at Gonna Geek. So we're going to take a moment and switch gears here and move into our interview with Lauren. Hey, have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Have you ever wondered what you would need to do it? Well, there's a show at the Gonna Geek Network that's just for you called Better Podcasting. And in fact, in this week's episode, Stephen and SP are going to run down a variety of different ways that you could podcast, including how to do it without using a traditional computer, like a desktop or a laptop. They've done it, and they're going to tell you how to do it. So check that out and much more in this week's Better Podcasting at betterpodcasting.com/134, another show that's a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network.
Hello there, citizens. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the floaty that will not flush no matter how many times you try in the toilet bowl of crime. I am Darkwing Duck, telling you please, talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. Whatever the heck that means. After all, you are watching Intellectual Podcast with your ears.
Oysters.
I don't. Well, I've never had one, so I can't say that I don't. I've never eaten.
Aren't you from the Carolinas?
Yes, I am.
Seafood is the thing, right?
They look like boogers in a shell, so I've never eaten one.
Boogers in a shell.
That was on tape, right?
Yeah.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, they kind of freak me out, so I've never eaten one. I'm not I'm not opposed to trying it. I just never wanted to buy any, and then on the chance that I hate them.
I mean, so okay, this would be an opportune time for you to try them because they're only $1. But the way to do it is you put them on a cracker, you put the lime, and then you put the sauce. So really, you're not tasting much of the oyster itself, but they're really good, clean protein. You know, good for you.
I'd be willing to give it a go.
All right.
Seed is so hot.
Are we rolling, Mr. David?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, excellent. Okay, well, we are here with Lauren Melody Shell. How are you doing today, Lauren?
I am doing really well.
I'm saying your full name, so if people want to look you up, they can find you on IMDb.
Yeah, I
you
understand.
use your full name.
I understand.
So Lauren and I know each other from graduate school out at UVA, and Lauren came out here to LA, and she's now kicking ass and taking names, doing art design and props and all sorts of stuff on movies and TV, and
yeah,
you've done a lot. Every time I call to hang out with you, you're like, I'm on set, I'm working. When are you off again? 3 months or something.
3 or 4 months from now.
She doesn't.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, she doesn't take a day off ever. So yeah, what have you been up to?
For the first 4 months of this year, I was working at the Hollywood Puppet Show for their second season. And I'm their production designer, and I've been with them since the first season as well. So,
what is Hollywood Puppet Show?
Hollywood Puppet Show is a show that is owned. Well, the right. Anyway, it's run through Entertainment One and Fuse Network. Fuse Network owns the show. And basically what it is we interview celebrities, and they tell their most ridiculous stories. And then we 3D print marionette puppet that looks just like them, and then we reenact their stories on camera. And so my job is to build the sets, design the sets, and build them for and the props for this show, alongside Dustin Yoder, who is my art director for that show.
So what is the most challenging thing about designing sets for puppets?
It almost always comes down to time and budget. You can build anything if you've got enough time or money. So for me, it's not so much the building process or even the designing process. It's just how much time we're given to do that in. As far as the complicated stuff of building, it's really just getting enough detail in it so that it looks like something and not just vaguely like you want it to be, but something that could really pass as a small version.
Yeah, because it's tiny, right?
Yeah, the puppets are 20 to 24 inches tall. So they're kind of American Girl doll size is a little too small, just a skosh out of scale. But for the most part, that's kind of the range that'll kind of give you an idea of size.
Yeah, I've seen some interesting stuff pop up as far as tiny foods that you have made and
kitchen
sets.
I really
things.
got into making food this season, so we've got a lot. I made some matzo ball soup. That's probably my pride and joy of last season. So this season went really well, and the network decided they preferred practical sets. Our first season was made, and it's on Hulu right now. The first season is, and actually the second season will be coming out on Hulu in July. But the network decided last year, we had one practical thing last year, which was a door. And the network decided that it looked really good when the puppets were interacting with that one real element that we had. And so they gave us some more money and decided to let us make some actual sets, which turned out to be totally worth it because they look so much better because it's shot on green screen otherwise.
Right.
And they just look so much better when they're real, when they're actually, and the puppeteers love it.
Well, especially in something like that, right? Because you're talking about practical puppetry. Mm-hmm. If it's not interacting with something real, why bother with practical puppetry?
Yes,
right?
And the puppeteers, they're good friends of mine. They're good people. They every time they would walk, they would go away, and we would put a set up in the room on the green screen stage, and they would come back, and every time it'd be like, oh man, this is awesome, just because they had something to do and touch and interact with, and it's always so much better than, here's where a bed will be. Just kind of floating in the air. Here's a green box for him to sit on. This is a couch. So it's they upped their game this season.
I would imagine that gets really challenging for a puppeteer, just sort of,
yes, it really does.
Guesstimating.
Uh-huh. So this season will be much better than last season. And so just the overall look and feel of it. So I'm really stoked about it.
But now this is not the first time that you've dealt with building tiny, tiny sets. Didn't you, for Keanu, do a bunch of tiny things?
And for the movie Keanu, we, my friend Haley Kime and I built the miniature kitten sets so the movie's all about this kitten, Keanu, and Jordan Peele's character, and so they we'll build all these little kitten sets because in the movie they are
this plate's a little bit warm.
Excellent.
Small plates over for you. We make our own chips. Let me know what you think. Got a spoon here, and like I said, I'll bring plates right here. Anything
Appreciate it so much.
Do you need more coffee or anything?
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, just as we were saying before, we were hanging out at the Cosmopolitan Hotel down in Old Town, and they just brought us, what did you order, Lauren?
The spinach or mushroom and artichoke dip.
Mushroom artichoke and spinach dip. It looks really good, and they have the gentleman who just served it to us said they make their own chips, and they look really good too.
I know.
So,
super stoked.
if you guys are in San Diego and you're in Old Town, come down and check it out because the food's really good. The atmosphere is very pleasant, and the coffee, which is my favorite part of life, is delicious. If I could get a sponsorship from just coffee, blanket sponsorship from coffee for my life, that would be great.
Yeah.
Even if you pay me in coffee, I would actually be all for it.
Totally.
Hashtag life goals.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Hashtag I'd also accept a sponsorship from Red Bull. That is all. So you're building sets for tiny kittens.
Oh, yes. So the character makes a calendar, a kitten calendar with his kitten, and he makes all these intricate sets that are movie scenes, or scenes from movies. And so we made 12 little kitten sets from, I specifically worked on the Beetlejuice and the Mad Max sets. Like those two were mine, and then there was one more. What was that? I can't remember the other one that was solely mine, and then we kind of divvied up parts for a couple of other sets as well. But yeah, so as the credits roll at the end of that movie, you see all the little images of the kitten in like different things, and we made those.
Yeah, that's nice that you had a moment that highlighted your work.
Well, we got through the whole movie, and I was like, they must have cut it. Like, we spent all that time, and we never saw it. And I'm like, oh, well. And then the credits roll, and I was like, like, that's it. It made me so happy.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. How did you get into this line of work?
My life has been a very strange life. I've done a lot of really different jobs over the course of my life, but it all kind of culminated at University of Virginia, where I was studying technical direction for theater. So it was just learning how to set design, or not set design really, but take the designs from the designer and create drawings and building. And I learned welding and carpentry and foam fabrication, just a whole bunch of random skill sets there. And they were awesome.
It's all the stuff I loved learning about at Baylor's Theater. So.
Like, it's the best, you know, like hands-on, really getting in there. And we got an art grant our second year. And it happened to fall into the theater. I think it was the theater department's like lab, but they decided, or I don't really know how it was supposed to be divvied up originally, but they decided to make it like a culminating class for art, architecture, and theater students, something that all of us could do and we could all get behind and learn something from. And they thought that making monsters would be the best way to do that. And so they had this class created called The Art of the Moving Creature. And it took students from the art school, from the architecture school, and the theater school. And we all learned, they brought in the Stan Winston School of Character Arts, which is, you can find that online, which are online classes normally with Matt Winston. His father, Stan Winston, is like, you know, a legend in
God in the industry.
You know, in the industry. And he did, you know, all the Jurassic Park dinosaurs and Terminators and Predators
Aliens
and Alien Queen and, you know, like anything from the 80s that was amazing and practical, like Stan probably worked.
Yeah, all the stuff that scared the crap out of you when you were a kid.
Yeah.
That was all
and
Stan.
So his son started this school when Stan passed away. And normally they do all online stuff, but they came out to UVA and Matt brought artists from out here to come teach us how to make monsters. And we did that for a year. And I fell in love. Because I enjoyed theater, but I just wasn't sure what I really wanted to do with it. Because I studied acting, I studied this technical direction, and I wasn't quite sure, wasn't feeling like a real dedication to really either one of those things. And when we started making those monsters, it just clicked. Like, it was just like, I want to do this. And Matt kind of saw the passion that I had and invited me out for an internship. And I came out here for 6 weeks in our final year of grad school. And he put me in studios all over Los Angeles. And I worked on Interstellar for making the miniature spaceships and with New Deal Studios. And I worked over at ADI, and those are the guys that, you know, are also really big with creature effects, practical creature effects.
Right.
I mean, like, it was an amazing time, and then I was hooked. So then I moved out here and started doing miniatures, and that's because I worked at New Deal Studios primarily, and they do most of Christopher Nolan's miniatures.
It's nice to hear people actually working in miniatures again, because there was a while there where it was feeling like the industry was going to just shut that whole side of the business down, right?
It really,
But I think there's been an uptick in the quality of how visual effects look in films, as like they've kind of learned to balance out CGI with the practical, right?
It always looks so much better when you can blend the two. When you've got that especially with that's why I'm so stoked for the second Jurassic World, because there's so many. They're going back to the animatronic dinosaurs, and so there's something more real about actors' performances when they've got something to interact with, or they can see it before they have to do something. And so it's why I love miniature stuff, because they've got that blend of real and effects, and like, it's just great.
So earlier, I have to bring this story up because I just find it charming. We were talking about you worked on a film called Dave Made a Maze.
Yes.
And what was the most challenging part of Dave Made a Maze, Lauren?
So, well, I mean, aside from the fact that the whole thing's made out of cardboard and it's just, making sets out of cardboard, we had this one room. It was called the Origami Room. It was a beautiful room. I loved it. It was my favorite room. And the room calls for this giant cardboard face to vomit origami. And so it's just constantly, this giant cardboard head opens, and it was in the script, it called for just oozing origami vomit. And so, you know, the room it was supposed to be filled with origami cranes. And so we knew we were going to have to fill a large space, and we had 2 or 3 volunteer sessions of getting volunteers. We had people mailing boxes of origami from classrooms across the United States. Like people that were just like, my students made, and they would send us like 10 cranes, and you're like, oh, thanks. You know, like we got cranes from everywhere. We had trash bags, and I mean, like, I don't know, 2 to 5 trash bags full of cranes. That's a lot of cranes. And we were like, this is it. Like, it's perfect. And we go in there after we built this giant chamber for this giant cardboard head, because the actors have to crawl through that head. So it's a huge thing. And we get in there and we go, aha! And we just dump the bags out onto this very empty floor, and I'm like, wow, that was underwhelming. Like, we need like 1,000,000 times more of these cranes to even come close to filling this room. So basically we ended up just crumpling up paper, like a ton of paper, crumpling it up, and then just kind of tossing the cranes on top to kind of give it the illusion of covered in cranes. So every shot was dressed really meticulously with more cranes on top of it, because there was not that many cranes in that room. Every time, it was just ridiculous. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I remember when you were doing that, and you were calling for everybody, come to a crane folding party, come join me.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't realize until recently, like I actually got an origami book and tried making a crane, and it took me, I'm going to say, a good half hour to make one crane. And then I'm like, oh dear God, I really feel for you now. Mm-hmm. How fast were you able to make cranes by the end of that, out of curiosity?
I actually got really fast at it, because we were cranking them out. Well, we knew we had to hit. It was something we needed. We knew we needed like 9,000 cranes, or it was something. There was a number, and so we had figured out, like, if all these people show up, we each have to fold like 50 cranes or something within the day in order to like get that number. And so you start off doing it like really meticulously, and by the end of it, you're like, just trying to like crank them out fast enough, but.
So then you have camera-ready cranes, and you've got background cranes.
Deep background cranes that are like, they're in the Vegas shape of a crane. And you're like, here you go. It's great. It's real great.
Shit's folded.
I did. We would do like the hero ones that would be like, you know, the actors interact with those particular ones, and then you've got everything else.
So man, you have been working a ton.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite production so far since you've been out here?
Everyone asks me that. Honestly, Dave Made a Maze was probably one of my favorite productions.
Yeah?
And it was the first one of my career. Like, that was my first on-set experience. It was my first prop master job. I was also the set dresser, which, by the way, you should never do both at the same time. That was a horrible idea. Horrible. But it was such a great crew that it didn't matter, that we were all working our butts off. So, you know, I'm like, the director, Bill Watterson, is amazing. And, yeah, I mean, it's just everything about that show is by far the most creative job I've had, just because of all the awesome weapons we had to make out of cardboard and all of the weird set pieces that it all had to be cardboard. So,
well, I suppose you don't get a whole lot of movies that have that sort of surrealist, odd. It reminded me of Science of Sleep.
Science of Sleep, yeah.
Yeah.
It's always kind of compared to that because of that kind of quality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, God, it's hard to say though. I mean, every job has its like ups and downs. But as far as creativity goes, Dave Made a Maze has so far not been passed as far as like that kind of thing goes.
Now, you also got to be on one of Justin Long's movies, right?
Oh yeah, literally right before Aaron.
I never get that name right. I was telling Dave about it earlier. I'm like, it's something with Aaron and...
It's LRBA.
Okay.
It's for those of us that worked on it because we couldn't say it over, and it was like Lurba because we didn't want to have to like say it over and over again. But yeah, he's actually a really sweet guy.
Yeah.
He was the first actor, and he's a pretty well-known actor. He was the first actor to ever come up to me on a job and thank me for work that I did the day prior. Because there's a scene in that movie. Well, I don't want to ruin it. I don't know.
It's been out long enough. It's been out a couple of years now.
Spoiler
if you haven't
alert.
seen it,
If you're that concerned, skip ahead.
Spoiler alert. If you're planning on watching literally right before Aaron, then skip like 5 minutes.
Well, there's a scene where he gets drunk at the woman that he is in love with's wedding, and he drunkenly...
Water? Sorry.
Yes, that would be awesome. Thank you. He drunkenly walks up to the stage where her giant tiered, like 5-layer wedding cake is. He walks over to it and shoves it off the front of the stage. And my job was to make, I think I had 5 versions of that wedding cake that we made. And
it's bad enough in a real wedding to have to make the one cake, right?
Yeah.
So like that's the thing about film, and you know we got a lot of people listening to the show who aren't filmmakers. Anytime you see something happening on screen where something gets destroyed, there's more than one of that made, right?
At least 3, just for the 3 takes worth. But we had like 5 wedding cakes. One of them was like a deep background, just styrofoam, really cheaply decorated for like way wide shot. That was all foam. Then we had a kind of foam base and a real top for one, just for like a decent splatter effect. And then we had like 3 fully real, like 5-tiered wedding cakes. And I'm not a cake decorator. I had no idea like what really went into like making a cake stand up.
There's a lot of work that goes into making a cake stand up.
And I just didn't realize that. And we started putting it together, and my plan was just not working out. Like we ended up, most of those cakes were held together with cardboard and hot glue, like that we'd shoved inside the real cake and hot glued it together.
Have you ever watched Cake Boss?
Oh my gosh.
Because that's the reality of it anyway.
I mean, yeah, don't they usually put like a dowel through the center?
Yeah.
Which I guess you can't do because you guys had to smush it.
Because it had to go flying. So they didn't want it to be so solid that it wouldn't splatter.
Right.
But they needed it to hold up to like make it onto the stage and then be pushed. So there was like this fine line. And at one point, we were standing on the stage and Justin was standing behind me, and I'm holding it because it's starting to kind of like lean ever so slightly. But, and it's really hot. They turn off the AC when they make movies. And so it's really hot. The icing is a little oozy, and we're standing here and I'm watching it kind of like go, and the director's just discussing things, and I'm standing there, and finally I was like, guys, if you're going to shoot this, we need to shoot this now. And essentially they started rolling. They would say action, and I would just walk off the stage, and he immediately would walk on and shove it right off. Like there was no wait time because the cake was not going to make it. So it really was like I was just kind of holding it, and I would briefly let go and kind of run quickly, and he would stumble on drunkenly and push the cake off the stage because we couldn't wait. There was like barely any acting involved because the cake was already kind of like
going that way anyway, right?
Shove it. But he came up to me the day after and thanked me for all the work on those wedding cakes, and it's always stuck with me because not many actors take the time to thank, prop people for coming up with random things, and it was just really nice of him. I really appreciated it.
It really does stand out though when talent comes up and thanks you as a crew member for what you do.
I mean, like it just doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I don't think enough folks who work in the talent side of our business. I'm looking at Whitney. I don't think enough of them realize how appreciated that kind of just simple grace from them can go so far.
I mean, it's stayed with me for years now.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
Well, I worked as a spotlight operator here in San Diego, gosh, over 20 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
For a Jim Belushi and his I think his Sacred Hearts band that he played with, blues band. They were performing here at the Embarcadero Park, and I was a spotlight operator, and Jim climbed my spot tower at the end of the show to thank me and the other spotlight operator for the good job that we did.
Oh, that's sweet.
You know, like, I mean,
it's just...
all it was, his head popped up over the edge of the tower, you know, because he had to climb up. He's like, hey, just want to say, you guys did a great job. Thanks. I was like, thank you, sir. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
and that's all it takes.
It's been 20 years. He's still one of my favorite celebrities just because, like, he took the time to go and say thank you to me. And it meant the world to me.
It means so much to you when you get... And it's not that I need like lavish praise. It really was just, you did a great job, thank you. And you're just like, you're welcome. So glad you noticed.
Yeah.
Like, I worked a long time.
I'm all dressed in black, and you noticed me. Like, thank you.
Well, and I don't know if you guys have experienced that on like smaller things, like indie films. I feel like that happens a lot. Like, you know, the actors thank each other, the director thanks everybody. Like, it's just everybody's thank you, appreciate your work, thank you, appreciate your work. Yeah. But I mean, I guess it becomes harder when you have 100+ people to go around. So yeah, that's great that he's like that. And you kind of think that just like based on you see the interviews, you see the types of characters he plays. Yeah. But
well, he's the Mac.
It's good to hear it from somebody that it's like, yeah, no, he genuinely is
legitimately
like,
a really sweet guy. And
should we hold?
Yeah, what is it? Helicopter?
Airplane.
Military helicopter. You know, they're shooting Top Gun 2 over on North Island.
Holding, helicopter. I don't know. We might be able to hear the helicopter on the thing.
But no, he is genuinely a sweet guy. And I had that was a really great, because Kobe Smulders was his co-star in that. And she was also the best. Like, it was just really great. It was like 150. We were shooting in this tiny, what was it called? I guess it was a studio apartment in like Los Feliz. It had a tin roof. And it was like 100 degrees outside. And so inside, we were all boiling. I can't describe to you the heat. Like, it was unbearable.
Well, tin roof just becomes a big radiator.
I felt like we were cooking in there. And it was unbearable. And Kobe ended up ordering an ice cream truck for the set. And it just sat outside of the set all day. And you just walk up and get a milkshake, or walk up and you know, and that was the first time. It's happened to me since as well, but it was the first time any like actor had actually been like, you know what, we're all really hot, you guys are working hard, here's some ice cream. And again, it was just like, God, thank you, just for, you know,
being thoughtful.
Just, you know, I'm like, man. It made the day so much better just because we could have a little bit of ice cream. You know, I'm like, suddenly it wasn't the worst day of our lives.
So you've gotten to meet quite a few celebrities through your work in the last few years. Who has been like your favorite to meet? Like, you might have gotten a little fangirlish. You're like, yes.
Well, that's something I'd pay money to see. You fangirling over somebody.
I don't, you know, I'm not a... I'm trying to think.
There's Whitney, always stumping people.
I didn't mean it to be a stumper.
No. I'm just like, when I'm asked, now I've got to look at my IMDb because I'm like, it's like I can't remember everything that I've worked on, and so
it's funny how it all just kind of blurs into
really
one giant job that never ended.
Yes,
especially in her case. I was not exaggerating when I'm like, I call her up and it's like, yeah, I have one day off in 4 months.
In 4 months.
Well, that's been my life since the beginning of the year too.
That's true.
I mean, I'm only home for 3 days right now.
It's true. As Lauren goes through her
I'm like
IMDb,
scrolling through. Let me see.
I mean, let's see. I can shout out some
I'm going to
things.
say this. This is a good spot to pause because we're at the half-hour mark. So we're going to end the first part of our chat with Lauren, and the second part will come in the next episode of the Intellectual Podcast. Thank you for listening to the first part of the interview with Lauren. We will come back with her fangirl moment next week on part 2 of the interview. In the meantime, I'm Dave Dawson.
I'm Whitney Wegman.
You've been listening to the Intellectual Podcast, and we will see you all again in a week as we conclude this very fun and interesting chat. And thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk soon.